My name is Judith Sachs and I'm Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Provost at Macquarie University. It's my pleasure to be the MC tonight for this public interview with Professor Bruce Dalton, the 5th Vice-Chancellor of Macquarie University. We're privileged tonight that this event will be one of the first hosted in the newly refurbished Macquarie Theatre. And I think that we're all just delighted at both the beauty, the splendour and the operational excellence exhibited here. On this opening evening, it is especially right for us to remember that our university is built on ancient lands, traditionally owned by the Darug, the indigenous people of the region. We respectfully acknowledge the Darug people as the traditional owners and custodians of the land. We acknowledge the elders, both past and present, and we extend our acknowledgement to any other Indigenous guests present here today. The Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, guests of the university, members of council, University Foundation patrons, colleagues and students, welcome to this special event. We are pleased to welcome you all here this evening, particularly those of you that have travelled some distance. Please note that this is a newly refurbished building and that we are testing Wi-Fi capacity this evening. We are sure that everything will be fine, but please bear with us and be patient if there are any teething troubles, particularly with live captioning. In a little while, you'll learn very much more about our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Bruce Dalton, as he opens up in an interview with well-known television presenter and journalist Richard Moorcroft. But first, our Chancellor will tell us a little more about this new refurbished Macquarie Theatre before declaring it officially reopened.
Well, thank you, Judith. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real delight to see so many of you here this evening, and I want to join with Judith in extending a welcome to each and every one of you. Well, after almost 12 months and $11 million of refurbishment, the Macquarie Theatre is looking great. Now, I have to admit that a visit this afternoon was the first time I'd ever entered the Macquarie Theatre. So, whilst I was mightily impressed by what I saw, I wasn't really in a position to compare with what it was previously. But I did run into someone who looked rather official and looked as though he knew something about it. And I asked him, and he informed me that until the refurbishment, it was a big old barn. And now, this is certainly not a big old barn. It is a building, I'm sure you'll agree, of which Macquarie University can be very, very proud. It's attractive, it's modern, and its design and refurbishment focused on accessibility, usability, and sustainability. Now, if you haven't already noticed it, two things which really impressed me this afternoon were the cladding on the walls, firstly outside in the foyer and also around this main hall here. The walls outside, it turns out, are made of recycled plastic crates, but they really did strike me as a very attractive building material. And in here, in the main hall, around the walls, we have some 120 panels. And I'm informed they're not here just for aesthetic reasons, but also for acoustic reasons. And each one of those 120 panels has up to 12,000 holes drilled into them. Each panel, I'm told, took 7.5 hours to make, and there are over 1 million holes. So let's hope that the acoustics are good. The aesthetics certainly are, I think, quite stunning. Now, as well as the main hall that we're in now, we have a number of new foyer spaces on both the first and the ground floors, which can be used for a number of purposes. The whole place, as Judith has intimated, is technology enabled. Now that's, I always found a weird expression. It wasn't an expression that existed when I was at university way back in the middle of the last century. In fact, at Sydney University in the 1960s, the technology we had consisted of a few telephone booths outside the Students' Union, a couple of manual typewriters in each department, and one solitary photocopy machine in the new Fisher Library. And it was one photocopy machine for almost 15,000, just over 15,000 students. And I remember it well because you had to queue up for hours. Each copy cost you a shilling, which is the equivalent of about $2 today. And the copy was not white or black print on white paper, but white print on black paper. And unless you somehow or other treated it in some special way, it faded within about a month. So today's students, I think, have it all over us. I'm told that each one of these seats has a plug-in point so that people can connect their laptops or other devices. Now, there are a few thanks to make. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the contribution of the federal government and thank them for the $4.2 million, which of course was very, very welcome. But I'd especially like to thank the University Property Project team, led by Stuart Hearn, and they, as you can see, have done a fabulous job, and I don't think we'd have such a fabulous building if it weren't for their commitment and dedication. Now, I think they're in the front somewhere, near the front, where are they? Where's Stuart? Right. Over there. Right, Stuart, I think you and your colleagues should stand up, and you should take a bow. Thank you for this great building. Well, I must admit, there are some people who wonder why universities invest in new buildings and infrastructure. I was telling an associate of mine on the weekend that we were opening this refurbished building this week, and I was also telling him about our fabulous new library. And he said, why would you waste all this money? He said, these days, everyone can get a university degree or a qualification online without ever stepping foot on the university campus. And that's true, that's already happening. But to me, a degree can't just be a piece of paper. A degree also has to signify a good, well-rounded education. And whilst I hope that Macquarie will always be a leader in the use of new technology, I think we have to make sure that that technology is always used in a way that enhances our teaching and not as something that destroys the human interactions that are essential to the development of educated, thoughtful people and the maintenance of a civilised society. A university always has to be a community of scholars. And it can't just be a virtual concept. A community, to my way of thinking, also has to involve a place or places. Places where people, students and scholars can meet, where they can talk, discuss things, argue, play sport and socialise together, study and learn together, and from each other. And of course, it helps to have great places, just like this one, where those things can happen. And this truly is a great place. So it's with great pleasure that I officially declare open the new Macquarie Theatre and declare it back in business. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.